What's up guys, my name is Mike and we're back out here working on the JON boat. If you guys are new to the channel, I have a playlist in the description that'll get you all caught up to everything we've done so far. Now before we jump right into it, I also wanted to do a brief overview just to get my bearings on where I want to move next with this build. So at this point, we've taken the boat, did a leak test and found a bunch of leaky rivets, sealed them up using an air hammer, then coated the entire bottom of the boat with coated epoxy. That was a double tap of leak sealing to make sure there is no water coming in through the bottom rivets. On the interior of the boat, all of the rivets and seams were sealed up with Gluvit epoxy. That way, if there was anything on the inside that may have been not showing from the bottom, we got that sealed up as well. After I did that, I did a Rust-Oleum paint job on the outside and inside. I'm really happy with how it came out. I'm using a new material. I'm not using the marine paint. I'm really just curious to see how this holds up in the water. So far, it's been holding up great over the winter. Haven't had any issues with it. So we're just gonna have to see how it goes over the summer. After that, I started working on the foam flooring. I have foam boards cut to fit in between each rib. I have a full video dedicated on how and why I did that, but the long and short of it is that it adds flotation in case water gets in the boat and also provides a better walking platform for the plywood to sit on, especially when you're using thinner plywood like I am to keep the weight down. After we got all the foam boards cut, I started working on the flooring and front bench seat. The flooring was pretty easy. We got a couple pieces pre-cut from Lowe's. After doing some measurements, I showed you guys some really cool tricks on how to get the ribs to fit within the boards, and they all slotted in nicely. After that, I started working on the framing for the front bench seat. At this point, we have our front cover board and a hinge top lid. This is gonna provide really killer storage once we get everything complete. So at this point, the framing and basic setup for the boat is done. I think it actually looks really cool. One of my last boats I did was a 1436 and this is a 1437. That 1 inch doesn't seem like it would be a big change in like the overall shape and style of the boat, but something about this boat just feels bigger. I'll throw some pictures up right now of the 1436 I worked on. That boat turned out really great. It was typical stability for a 1436. Two people were kind of coordinating on when to move and, you know, walking around the boat, you had to stay on the center line. I'm assuming it's going to be pretty similar for this boat. Even though it's only a 1437, it feels pretty wide, so I'm really excited to get this on the water and test out the stability. In addition, this is a Mod V, so it's going to break the waves a little bit better and be a little smoother driving around. With all that being said, I really like the look and style that I'm going for. With the front bench storage seat up there and everything getting the EVA foam, I think this is going to look really, really killer once we get to the finishing stages of this build. And real quick while I'm back here, just some other things we did to the boat was we got the trailer all sorted out. New grease on the bearings, we got new wheels, I redid the bunks, new trailer winch. Overall, the whole thing is just really tightened up and ready to go. So for the next stage of the build, the main thing I need to focus on is getting this wood sealed up so we can start doing the EVA flooring. For today's video, I'm gonna focus on pulling all of the wood out of the boat and getting it epoxied. In total, it looks like I just have the 4 boards that need to get epoxied. These 2 and the front face here is just gonna come right out and get the epoxy put on. This front lid here with the hinge has got to get cleaned up. This was originally not meant to be a visible hatch lid like this. It was originally just going to be storage with a hole cut out for a hatch. But now that I'm doing this, I definitely want to clean this all up to make it a little bit nicer. Let's go ahead and start disassembling the boat, get the wood set up for epoxy, and I'll show you how it all works. If you guys have been following along with the build so far, you're probably sick of seeing this hatch lid. I know I'm sick of working on it, but it's one of those things where it just took a lot longer than I expected it to, but it was for good reason. There we go. That way, in case the hinges move at all, once the lid comes off, I'll know my drill spots. Now, one thing I may pick up are some new screws for this. I don't believe that the screws are stainless. I know that the hinges are because I've actually used these outside on a bird feeder and there's been no rust whatsoever on the hinges, but the screws have rusted. Now for the bulk of the cleanup, I'm just going to be using this power sander. This Diablo 80 grit has worked so well for so many different applications. It feels like a really good middle ground between too aggressive and enough to just finish things too. Obviously, depending on what you're trying to do. But if you guys were looking for a good brand of sandpaper, I'll throw a link in the description if you guys want to check it out. This is taking off paint, sanded wood, cleaned up the aluminum. Okay, that took out most of the high spots, kind of smoothed everything down. I know it still looks like crap, but once it's all epoxied and then painted over, it's gonna look great. And then the other thing was that someone had a really great comment on how I could shore this up, and they said that basically I could do a piece of square aluminum tubing down the middle. I was thinking about doing supports from the underside, but that would actually work out really well. But then I was also thinking I could do it with wood as well. I have tons of scrap wood right now, that I could either do like, even like a really light 2x4. This is an option for the future. Not sure how I'm gonna run with that yet. And I'm gonna need some more horses if I'm gonna do this all in one go, which I would really like to do. All right, let's get this cleaned up. Now that that's done, let's throw a tarp on top and we should be good to go with enough room to do all this. All right, so the epoxy I'm gonna be using today is the Better Boat Tabletop Epoxy. I've used this on my 1648 boat and it worked really, really well. It gave a really hard shell finish to it and it did a complete waterproofing. So this stuff has been proven. As you can see, this is I think a 2-pound kit and I'm probably about 75% of the way through it. And I've had nothing but good things to say about it. It works really well. The only tip I have for you is that if you're gonna be using it, set it out in the sun or put it on like a heat grate in your house if it's a little cooler, just to make sure it's nice and liquid. If it gets too cold, it can really be a little too viscous to work with. At this point, I've had it sitting out in the sun. It's nice and ready to go. And I think we've got everything in place here. By weight, it's 100 parts resin to 83 parts hardener. So I'm gonna start off with just 100 grams and then 83 grams of hardener, and we'll see how far that gets me. The nice thing is that as long as you can pour it out, once the hardener mixes with the resin, the whole thing heats up and it becomes much looser. Warming up your resin just helps you get it out of the container easier. So what I found works really well is just kind of drizzle it on first and then spread it with your brush, and then it all just kind of lays down nicely. You can see the wood change color as it starts to absorb the epoxy, so it's pretty easy to make sure you're getting full coverage. Okay, so looks like 100 grams got me about 1/4 of one piece of wood. I'm hoping we're gonna have enough epoxy for this. Once I'm done with this side, I'm gonna come back and get any drips from the underside. You really don't want those drips to harden because they're kind of a pain to have to sand off. Now on one of the boats I did this, I actually used the epoxy to do the coating and I left it like that. I didn't paint over top of it and I think it looked really killer. I wrapped the carpet around it and still kept the exposed epoxy. It really does bring out a really nice color in wood. Now any voids like this knot here, make sure you fill them in really good. You don't want to leave any exposure to the interior of the wood or where the layers of the plywood seal up with one another. So I actually have this piece of scrap wood that would fit that area perfectly. It's not going to be as rigid as a 2x4, but it'll still definitely give it some more stability. I'm going to center this right on the wood. This will just firm up the center support, lay some epoxy down, and then I'll mix up a little bit more to cover it up. Like I said, this is the build of scrap wood. All right guys, we are back out here the next day and everything is looking perfect. All of the epoxy is cured, including my paintbrush onto my scale. There we go, peel it off because it just quite hasn't hardened up on the bottom yet, thankfully. So close call on that one. One thing I did run into yesterday is I am pretty much completely out of epoxy. I did get back with Better Boat and they're going to be sending me out another 2-pound kit, so we should be ready to finish this off pretty quick. However, I still do have enough to do the support brace that I epoxied on late yesterday. I'm really happy I did that. It firmed this up so much. It really did exactly what I wanted to do. So while I'm waiting on enough epoxy to do the reverse side of all these boards, I'm gonna go ahead and get this all done. That way, this is just 100% ready to go when it's time to flip it over and do the other side. I had this sitting inside on my air vent and I turned the heat on. It's pretty chilly today anyway. That should loosen up the resin some so we can get as much as we can out of this. I wanted to make sure I got it really good under the board over here. It's lifting up a little bit because this board is slightly bowed. So what I'm gonna do is put a little bit more epoxy under it and then clamp it down overnight. Actually probably screw it down. And then this should be plenty of epoxy to do this piece of wood. Oh yeah, that looks perfect. All right, last but not least, gonna fill in a couple of these screw holes. That looks good. All right guys, with that last bit of epoxy complete, there's nothing else I can do until I get more in. I already reached out to Better Boat yesterday. They're gonna be sending me a new 2-pound kit. Usually their shipping is really fast, so I expect to have it within a couple days. All right, so just some general tips on epoxy. The main thing is that if you're working in a colder climate like I am right now, it's probably around 50, 60 degrees, you probably want to preheat your resin a little bit. You can do that by, like I did, put it on a grate in your house and turn your heater on. or you can put it in some hot water, something like that. It just makes the resin flow that much better. Aside from that, with epoxy, it kind of goes against the less is more thing, where more is better. The more you apply down at once, the smoother it's going to be. If you can kind of see with the light reflecting off the new pieces I put on there, you can see the different levels and grades that I had on this one. That's because I was really starting to stretch the epoxy at this point. But if you look on like this piece here where I had plenty of epoxy, it's a nice smooth glassy finish. Now, this is all going to get covered up with flooring, so it's not as important for this specific scenario. But if you wanted to have your epoxied wood on display, you definitely want to make sure you do a nice thick coating because it's going to lay down the smoothest and cleanest. Aside from those couple things, epoxy is really easy to work with. It's very durable and it works really great as a sealant for wood. If you guys want a little bit more in-depth look on epoxy and how to mix it and apply it, I have some really great videos on that. I've used epoxy in a lot of different ways on boats, so I'll have some links in the description for you guys to check out. Next up on the boat build is going to be reinstalling all the wood in a more permanent fashion. The floors, I think I'm actually going to use something that I picked up at the store the other day, which was this outdoor extreme Velcro. This stuff is supposed to be really, really strong. It's got 15 pounds of holding force, which is more than enough to keep a floor from lifting up off the ground while you're standing on it. So what I'm thinking about doing is running some along the ribs and then having the floor sit on top. That's going to keep the floors from shifting around, and it's also going to make the floors really easy to remove in case you like drop something down the side of them, or for whatever reason you need to replace them or just take them out. For the front hatch here, this one's going to be installed in a much more permanent fashion. I'm going to finish ribboning in these tabs. I'm going to put 2 rivets in each tab like I have on the sides here. So the 2 bottom ones need another rivet. Then this front panel is going to get screwed in with self-tapping screws. The hinges here are going to get riveted onto the plate and then screwed into the lid. So this is all much more solid and not really easily removable. Now, as I said, this is going to be a super budget build, so I'm excited to try a bunch of way more affordable options for different things. For example, I was thinking about grabbing one of those hook fish finders just for some very basic GPS and like depth readings and stuff like that. For the trolling motor, I have a hand trolling motor around here somewhere. Yeah, right there. So I'm going to be installing that somewhere. I'm pretty sure that's actually going to go on the back of the boat. I really like having a trolling motor on the back of the boat for these small boats. It really makes trailering a lot easier. A lot of the times when you have a bigger motor on a smaller boat, your idle speed is way too fast. So rather than cruising into the trailer, I've really liked having that on the back so I can really just ease myself into the trailer without much issue. If you guys are interested in seeing where this boat goes, don't forget to subscribe. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give this video a like. It really helps me know what you guys are liking. And if you guys have watched me this far, something else you can do if you really want to help the channel is share this video. I'm really trying to get the video out there this year. I'm trying to put a lot of work into these videos and these builds and give you guys some really quality information. So if you guys think that that's helpful and you think more people should see it, maybe give my video a share somewhere. It'd really mean a lot to me. All right, guys, well, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.